Hi everyone, good afternoon. Hirsch Saha here. It's still Tuesday, the 27th of February, 2024, and reporting from Auckland, New Zealand. And this talk video is one which I've actually thought of doing for a very, very long time, but I kept, hesitating, kept, putting it back or delaying it, procrastinating with it, because I just thought with the just the nature of the content in it, I just thought that maybe it would not be appreciated by so many people. But I still think it is one which is worth, discussing, one which is worth talking about, presenting. And I'm sure that I'll probably, will get a lot of rebuttal, maybe even a lot of dislikes on this video when I put it on YouTube, because I can just imagine a lot of people how they react to it, and it is quite a polarizing topic. But no, I think it is still worth mentioning because it really does have a lot of truth to it, and truth that is actually based on actual evidence, actual cases, actual events that have not only happened in the past but continue to happen and happen very common, quite common and happen very frequently as well. Okay, so today in the developed world, today in the developed world, is it really women who have more rights than men? At first you'd think, no, of course not. Where do women have more rights to men? And certainly in some places of the world, in the more developing countries, I would say there's just no argument. Women definitely do not have as many rights as men. There's really no argument. You look, even a country such as India, the country of my origin, where I'm originally from, there women, have to do whatever their husband says. The husband is always, the head of the household. Women sometimes, get married to, men who they might not be particularly happy with or love, but that's what the family believes in. That's what the caste that they're labeled with, says they have to marry into the same caste. That is also what the religion is basically dictating, and that's just how things are done there. And even if the woman hates the man or doesn't get along with the man, or the man treats the woman horribly, she still can't leave the marriage, or she'll be disowned by everyone in her family. Things like that in India. And if you think, that is bad, and of course it is. But basically, in a country like India, women are second-class citizens, but still they do have some rights. They say if their husband beats them, yes, they can, call the authorities, they can call the police. What the police actually do in response is, of course, another story altogether, but at least women have some rights and they can call the police if their husband beats them or abuses them. But and like I said, if you think that's bad, and of course it is even worse in places such as the Middle East, which are very religious, where women not only do they have less rights to men, they basically have no rights at all. Women are basically seen as a property of their husbands, almost like cattle, and it is actually okay or accepted, common for men to beat their wives, and of course no one will do anything about that. Women can't even go out in public, leave their home, unless they're accompanied by a male, even if it's a young child. Such laws, things like that, which are just ridiculous. So, in many places in the world, especially the East or developing countries, it is no argument. Men have more rights to women. But looking specifically at more developed countries here in the West, especially countries such as my own New Zealand, countries like Australia, the United States, Canada, Western Europe, countries like those, when we look more into things, it can be a bit different. And so just remember, I want to make that, if you like, a bit of a disclaimer that I'm only talking about the countries in the developing world and countries today. It seems, that women actually have more rights to men, as if the pendulum has really swung on that front. And so that's what I'm talking about, specifically only those countries and today. It's probably different, or maybe different in other countries. It may have been different in the past. But yeah, I know that men tend to get paid more than women, even at the same jobs, and men tend to find it easier to work up to, higher positions than women. That Yes, those things are there even here in the developing world. But don't forget that even that is changing. That is changing. We're now having women, really working their way up, women doing all sorts of roles where they didn't do much at all. I mean, in terms of work, um, as in a job, where they didn't do much at all in terms of jobs, just 20, 30 years ago. So we now have women really coming into the workforce, women working in all sorts of roles. We've got women heading, companies, corporations, you name it. We almost had a woman president, only 8 short years ago. And, oh, I wish we did have that woman president, especially compared to the one who was elected. Geez, who didn't suffer from that? But yeah, we almost had a woman president. At least we have a vice president who is a woman, today, and I think that's awesome. So progress is being made there, slowly, but really coming to sort of everyday stuff, everyday rights. Just from what I've seen, what I've experienced myself, what I've read about, what I've heard, and also what I've spoken to many other people about, it really does seem that today, only today in the developing world, women do seem to have more rights than men on many, many fronts and in many everyday things. And it's really just down to so many examples, which I've actually made basic notes on this time, like in the last video, and I'm reading from. So let me have a look. Yes, one interesting one in the workforce. Despite what has actually happened, so these are many different examples that I'm going to name now, just basically to show, like cases if you like, to show that women have more rights in the developing world today than men. So one interesting example, which is as old as time immemorial and which probably happens virtually every day in virtually every city. Despite what has actually happened in an event, um, um, a woman accuses a man of sexual harassment in the workplace. Everyone's up in arms, and he's fired on the spot. You know, a man accuses a woman of sexual harassment. No one cares, and he's just told to harden up. Really, it's like, oh, you should be so lucky that she tried to do something to you. Or people will even laugh and say something to the man. It's like, oh, did she hurt your feelings? Things like that. And obviously, men have feelings just like women do. So that's one interesting example, and I should know because I've seen it happen in front of my face. Um, Whenever there's a domestic disturbance, between say a husband and wife couple or a man and a woman, police or whoever, whatever authorities arrive, and of course it's the man's fault, or he is immediately accused because he is much more likely, or people expect he's much more likely to be at fault, isn't it? And obviously that's not always the case. Sometimes it is the woman's fault. It does happen that some women do abuse men or their partners, whether it's emotionally or sometimes even physically. It does happen, believe it or not. I'm not saying that it always happens or that it even happens more than the other way around, but it does happen. That's the point. Same with the other one on sexual harassment. Okay, maybe it's men who sexually harass women more often at work than women, doing the same to men. But the point is, it does happen. Women do it to men. Um, and again, like with committing, a crime, despite the crime, a man is likely to get a harsher sentence than a woman, for the exact same crime. And on that, a man is much more likely to be accused of something than a woman, despite what has happened, because, again, people believe it's always a man who's at fault or much more likely to be at fault. But sometimes it is actually women who commit crimes, believe it or not. And I know because I've had the same done to me. I've had a woman who stole from me, who stole thousands of dollars in money and worth of things from me. And sometimes I wonder, is that why the police did virtually nothing? Because she's female, and dare I say, with a lighter skin complexion than me, and I'm the male, and also I'm older too, so it's it's just amazing what happens. And again, that's the point. Maybe sometimes men commit more crimes, or they're more likely to commit a crime, or they're more likely to abuse, or they're more likely to be even a murderer. But the point is that it does happen the other way around. Women do it as well. They do it as well. It does happen, even if it's less often. Um, Another interesting example is like, oh, a woman says she wants to go and work in childcare, and everyone's like, oh, that's awesome, good for you. Hey, I wish you all the best. You're going to be a great teacher. A man says he wants to go and work in childcare, and people are like, well, what the hell wrong with you? Are you a and you probably know the rest of that sentence, he's just suddenly looked at with suspicion, and why, and it's amazing. And again, it's just that same sort of, sort of stereotype or that long held belief that men, are more likely to abuse children than women, and maybe it's happened more in the past, but again, you'll be surprised women can also abuse children as well. It has happened, and also on the same note, here's another interesting one. I remember like a woman goes up to a child, even right in front of the parents, and she immediately picks him up, hugs him tight, kisses him on both cheeks, and says, "Hello, darling," as if it's her own child. And what do people do? How do they respond? They say, "Oh, look at that. She's so good with kids. She should be a teacher." A man goes up to a child, just taps him on, the shoulders, says, "What's up, champ?" And people immediately point the finger and go, and you can imagine what they say, So yeah, that's one which is quite sad, and we wonder why we don't have enough male teachers. Well, especially here in New Zealand, we wonder why we don't have enough men working in childcare. I would say that that's probably one of the big reasons why. Um, what else is there? And one I actually remember from an example, if and again, it's an interesting one. I almost decided not to mention it, but I still think it is worth mentioning. If suddenly a man is, found naked in public, and again, it might not be his fault. He could have been mugged, he could have been tricked, in some way. God knows what could have happened. But if a man is suddenly found naked in public, people look at him and point and say, "What the hell's wrong with you? Are you a pervert or something? What are you trying to do?" Whereas if it's a woman, people probably run to her. I'm not saying it's always the case, but this is what's sort of more likely to happen given, our currently based beliefs, and current trends. Um, if it's a woman suddenly found naked in public, people probably run to her and say, "Oh my God, what's wrong? Are you okay? Here, take my jacket." Things like that. Where again, yes, of course she could have been mugged or tricked, but then again, she could have just gone out naked for the hell of it, or maybe she's drunk or intoxicated or drugged or something like that. You know, um, I remember here's an interesting one which a friend of mine once told me, and which I've never forgotten. And I think, wow, that's actually very interesting. I can't believe it never occurred to me to be seen as attractive, physically attractive, not really in the face, but in terms of the body. A woman just has to be thin, whereas a man has to be thin and toned to be seen as physically attractive. That's an interesting one because obviously it's much, much more work to be thin and toned than it is to just be thin. I would know. um, I remember doing some research and I found one interesting point on this topic, and that is how it's also historical, with men and women. Historically, women had no rights. They couldn't even own property, they couldn't vote, they couldn't work. Historically, they had no rights, and this sort of goes back to actually even colonial times, sort of 14, 15, 16, 1700s, even 1800s, those sort of times. Um, so when women had fewer rights, to compensate for that, we gave them a set of privileges, a set of pretty good privileges. For example, ladies first. You always say good morning or good afternoon to a woman, and you're not obligated to do the same for a man. Things like whenever a woman leaves the table, all the men get up. Just to acknowledge that. Things like that. What else? You never hit a woman. Things like that. You never hit a woman. Full stop. Implying that it's okay to hit a man. They say you never ever hit a woman, even if she deserves it, even if she truly deserves it. But again, yeah, that's implying that it's okay to hit a man. And if you ask me, I think shouldn't it be you never hit a man, woman, or child, no matter what? White or black, young or old, attractive or not, religious or atheist, rich or poor, educated or uneducated. You get the picture. Shouldn't it be? I think we've come further, and it should really be you never hit a man, woman, or child, not just you never hit a woman. So there's that. We gave them those privileges. Even with dating and romance, it's the man. It's usually kind of like an unspoken thing. It's the man's responsibility to ask the woman out and bear the brunt if she says no or causes any trouble as a result. And even then, he has to pick her up. He has to drop her back. He has to pay for her, meal and drinks, snacks, movies, whatever they do. And there's no real obligation for her to pay him back. It's really something if you think about it. Also, men must always sacrifice themselves for women in the case of a disaster. Think of, I guess the Titanic disaster is a good example. There's only enough lifeboats for half the people, and it's women and children first on the limited lifeboats. So just let's see. So just on that topic, basically what I was saying was that yeah, sorry, and there's a few other things. You never ask a woman her age or her weight, implying that it's okay to ask a man the same things. When a woman says no, she means it, even if she doesn't have a good reason for saying no. Like if she wants to break a relationship or she says no to when you ask her out, she means it. Again, implying that, if a man means no, you don't always take it 100%. You could still try to convince them or still try to, try for things. Um, and what else? Yeah, so what I was saying is that, it's also historical. In the past, women had less rights than men, so we gave them a set of privileges to compensate for that, all those things I just mentioned. But today things have changed. Today they do have pretty much full rights to men, at least legally, but they still have that set of privileges because it's so embedded in our everyday culture. Things like, you never hit a woman, you always greet her. Maybe not all men having to stand up at the table whenever a woman leaves, and maybe not like that. But certainly the other things. Ladies first. You never hit a woman no matter what. The man has to ask her out, and bear the brunt if she says no. Pay for her, pick her up, drop her back, take care of her. All those things. Um, you know, yes, we gave them that set of privileges to compensate for when they had less rights. Now they have equal rights, but that set of privileges is still there as well because it's so embedded in our culture. So if you look at it, men have full rights, yes. Today, again, remember in the developed only today and in the developed world, but women have full rights and a set of privileges. So overall, they're really higher, aren't they? That is an argument in itself. And what else? I remember once watching actually a video on YouTube. Someone was trying to prove something. There was a swimming pool full of children, and they sent a woman there just to sit down by herself, no child herself, and just to video record it, and nothing happened. Then they sent a man there to sit down and video record it, and I think within minutes he was spotted and asked to leave. That also says something again. It's amazing how I'm not sure if it happens much in my country, New Zealand, although I have heard of it happening, and I actually know some people who have done it from friends of friends in the past. But I know it happens a lot in the US where, a woman, if she's caught shoplifting, especially if she's a younger, more attractive woman, say she's caught shoplifting, I'm sure she did it on purpose. And, she might have hit something, like a product even in her clothes. And she'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, my bad. I must have forgot to take that to the checkout, or I must have forgot that I had it on me. I'm so sorry. And chances are, not always, but chances are the guard will say, it's okay, don't worry about it. Or she could even start to kick up a fuss. Hey, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me. Again, the guard might back off, or say it's okay, don't worry. Whereas if it's and chances are she'll be fine, she'll even be let go. But if it's a man who tries to do the same thing, oh my God, good luck, good luck with that. And another one which is quite interesting, actually, I remember hearing about is that uh, if if a woman cries, it's a tragedy, an absolute tragedy, and everyone will run to her and try to comfort her, and everyone should run to her and try to comfort her. But if a man cries, it's funny, and like I said earlier, men have feelings too. Don't forget. So if a woman cries, it's a tragedy, but if a man cries, it's funny. Pretty sad in that way. And no, I think that's basically everything I've said. So there's a lot of examples there. And one good one was about what's now embedded in our culture, all those privileges women have over men. And yeah, so just not saying it's absolute, it doesn't happen every single time, but based on what I've seen, what I've heard, what I've read, what I've talked about, what I've researched, like I said, what I've talked to others about, it really does seem today that you know, just today in the developed world, women actually do have more rights than men. Certainly, in more of a cultural and social way in our society, they really do have more rights to men, and they're less likely to get in trouble. Things like that. You heard what I said. I remember actually telling this to one friend, and he said, "Well, Hirsch, look at it this way: men have been at the top, since the dawn of civilization. Don't you think it's high time we gave women a chance, a turn?" And I think that's a very good point. But even again, I will say, I think we're past that. It's not about trying to, get revenge, if you like, or saying, okay, we did this to them, now they should be allowed to do it to us. It's not about that. I think we're far ahead of that. Like I said before, it should be men, women, and children who all have equal rights. So just because men had rights for since the dawn of civilization, they had more rights to women doesn't mean we should definitely give women more rights to men. Really, we should make the playing field as level as possible in every way as possible for both men and women. Well, men, women, and children. That is certainly what I believe. But still, all those examples mentioned. And I found a lot of people actually agree with them when I talk about it. And I understand that there will be a lot of people who will really just completely disagree because they're just going on preconceived notions or just their gut reaction, saying, no, you can't say that. That is complete BS. Of course, men have way, 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 way more rights to women, even today, even in the Western world. I'm sure I'll get a lot of dislikes and negative comments on that on this video. But really, once again, there is a lot of truth to what I said, and it's based on real evidence. And again, it makes you think, and it really does lead me to the conclusion that overall, today in the Western world, women have more rights to men, and hopefully, fingers crossed, sometime in the future, the playing field will become more level, because that would just be awesome. And let's just hope that happens. I certainly pray that that happens. Thank you for watching. Bye.